Bertrand Biou from Kizio Digital. I'm the co-organizer with Xavier Tacoun of this Belgium Meetup Open Transport Meetup. It's the second one, 2 years ago, the first one. And I'm very pleased to have you tonight for 4 presentations. You will see this presentation with the program. I'm not going to talk a lot, just to let you know why we are organizing this kind of events at Kizio Digital. I'm working for Kizio Digital. Kizio Digital is a digital firm from Keolis Group. We are working on traveler information, and we have a special asset called Navitia, N-A-V-I-T-I-A. So it's a trip planner, and it's open source. It's a free software, and for 6 years now, and maybe 7 years. We are also organizing these events to meet the community and to talk about innovation, commons, open data, a lot of stuff like that. So that's why we first organized this meetup in France at Mozilla Foundation, and then we tried to organize in other parts of France and even in UK and in Belgium. So you see, Belgium is a very big country. So what's important with this Open Transport Meetup is to promote commons, and as I said, it could be knowledge, assets, resources like code or data, or even open hardware sometimes. So we try to show interesting projects and people to meet. There is what is important to understand in the mobility sector is that we also talk a lot about MaaS, mobility as a service, which is a very important thing in the mobility sector. We do believe that we should have to go on the open MaaS. It means interoperability and better collaboration with open standards, API, SDK, digital tools, and data. So it's very important for us to work with other assets. For example, at Kizio Digital, we use Navitia, but we also use Valhalla, which is another open source trip planner from Mapbox. And we also use a lot OpenStreetMap and other resources like that. So tonight there are 2 meetups. One, this one you are attending, but there is another one in Germany, Open Transport Meetup Virtual. And it's very important to understand that Open Transport Meetup, it's not a trademark. Every people could organize one in every countries. So don't hesitate if you need help to contact me to organize this kind of events. It could be 20 people or for 100 people, it depends. And we are working with a network of people, of spaces too. You see, like Tuba, Le Square, Liberty Living Lab, or Espace Mobilité Bruxelles. So it's very important to understand this network. So I'm gonna let François from Stumlink talk about his presentation now.
Yes, thank you very much. Let me share my screen. Voila, you should all see it. Thank you very much for inviting us tonight for this Open Transport Meetup. My name is François. I'm the co-founder of Stumlink, a Belgian-based startup trying to make sure that tomorrow's mobility is accessible and a reality for everyone and everywhere. And tonight, I'd like to talk to you about this very important thesis for us at Stumlink. Our mobility habits take roots in our daily life, and we believe that no no matter how motivated you can be to reinvent your mobility, to leave your car, to start using shared mobility options, if you live in the middle of nowhere and if you don't have any alternatives available, then there is no point at, and there is no then there is no hope that your mobility habits will change on the long run. And it's very important for us to recon that, to also go a bit further than the mobility as a service hype that is currently still very much focused on big urban areas. And if we want then to achieve the modal shift at scale, we need three things. We need to understand the current mobility spectrum. We need to fully understand the offer and what is available to you. And then we need also to understand the mobility habits and its trends, and that is giving you the demand, basically. And then you need solutions to balance them both and to make sure that the demand matches the offer. And again, tonight we will be mostly talking about demand-side mobility as a service, as we believe that the offer side is again pretty much of the hype, with a lot of very interesting mobility service providers flowing in our cities, but not always matching the mobility habits we can acknowledge. So, first off, the offer. How does accessibility look like in Belgium? And I've prepared a few database that we have computed with the team today. So this is so for each of them, you will, it's displaying basically the accessibility in the area you can access using, in this case, public transport network with a 90 minutes journey. So starting off from the center of Antwerp, from Hasselt, from Liège, from Mons, you can see immediately, and it shouldn't be a big surprise, but that basically what you can access is following the main train lines. Antwerp is doing quite a good job at connecting the metropole to several big cities outside of Brussels. Brussels is luckily accessible to the four of the studied cities in this case, but we can see that Antwerp is doing a bit better at connecting also its suburb and neighbor cities. But overall, basically, outside the neighborhoods and the direct suburbs of the cities, you can reach one or two big other ones in the country, and that's it in 90 minutes. Obviously, if you take your car, then you can basically, the car is filling all the gaps, and the car allows you to go in all those places where the public transport does not. And just to make it clear, the previous analysis was combining all public transport. So we're not talking the train only, but also buses, trams, and so on. But it seems that we're still very much following the big train lines. Whereas the car allows you for the same 90 minutes, obviously, to fill in the gaps and to drive basically in the entire region around your city. This being said, it's still interesting to see, if we compare them both, for example, for the cities of Mons and Hasselt, that the very center of Brussels, for example, is not reachable by car within 90 minutes. Whereas it is if you use the train. So it's always worth noticing that there are some, if you do follow the big train lines, you may find your way much more easier and further away using the public transport networks. So,
François,
yeah.
sorry for interrupting. Could you hide the bar on the bottom of your screen because some are missing?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry for that. Voilà. Thank you, Xavier. Voilà. So on the top side, you have the cars, and on the bottom side, the public transport networks. So that is a bit of a broad view for Belgium. And then that is just comparing the two. Last comment, and we'll come back to that, but you see that on the left side, you have still a gray zone that is not accessible even by car, and that is the region around Wavre, which is similarly not accessible if you use any public transport. We'll talk to that a bit later with a peripheral view of Brussels, and the discovery that some of the suburban cities of Brussels are definitely seem definitely to be a bit nowhere, at least when it comes to accessibility. If we look at the Brussels region and what you can reach within 25 minutes using public transport networks, it's basically the same. You basically get the same as for the whole country, meaning that you basically stay within your neighborhoods unless you're taking some of the structural metro lines. So it's very much the case on the top left for the SL, where you see that you can reach up to Anderlecht if you're taking the metro, and it's very much the same if you look at Saint-Gilles in the bottom left. Without a metro there, you are basically stuck in your neighboring in your neighborhoods if you want to use public transport network only within 25 minutes. And what is interesting is that in the Brussels region, the bike is basically playing the same role as the car for the whole Belgium, filling in all the gaps, and within the same 25 minutes. Expands quite a lot the area you can reach. Still, if we look back at the public transport networks within the boundaries of Brussels region, we also have our black spots. For example, Schaerbeek is hardly accessible from any of those very important point of interest. So all the small colored dots are places. So you have the Zelle, Tourret Taxi, Parvis Saint-Gilles, Flagey, a few important hubs. And you can still see that, and it should not be a surprise, I guess, for those working at public transport agencies among you. But voilà, outside the structural metro lines, it's still very difficult to move around and get around in Brussels region. And lastly, if I look at the suburban cities, so Halle, Wavre, Leuven, basically you get illustrated what I was talking about. Wavre on the left side is this what you can reach within 45 minutes. On the left side, it's using public transport operators. On the right side, using your car. And that visualization explains probably why so many commuters are still relying on their car. If you're living in Wavre, you can simply not expect to get to any nearby big city using public transport operators. Wavre is not reaching Brussels within 45 minutes. Which is more the case for Halle. Obviously, it's a bit closer. Braine-l'Alleud is hardly reaching Brussels, but still. So, voilà. Again, no big surprise, I guess, for most of you, but it's always important and always good to remind ourselves about what the offer looks like, at least when it comes to public transport operators. Voilà. Turns out, the current mobility spectrum and this offer is both a byproduct and an enabler of our mobility habits. And that is the whole thesis and the whole point we want to make tonight. It's, remember, as we said at the beginning, our mobility habits take roots in our daily life. And where does our daily life start? Well, our daily life starts probably where we live. And where we live and our choice of home is one of the most important decisions for one's mobility. If you consider it, again, if you decide to buy a nice home in the middle of nowhere, then you can forget about your dream of multimodality and active mobility, probably, at least on a daily basis. And that might not be a problem at all, but it's important to recount that. You need to recount that because where you live is the starting point of your mobility, but also where you live is strongly, and it's even more strongly linked these days to our values and lifestyle. Be they about eco-consciousness, the question to have access to private car or not, what lies around, and your capability or your willingness to use delivery at home services and so on. Where you live is strongly linked to how you will be able to behave mobility-wise. So how do we balance this out? Looking at, on the one side, the offer and the current spectrum, and on the other side, being a bit honest about one's goal, if I may, and core value when it comes to moving around. What we develop at Sumig is a set of tools to help this matchmaking, this very important matchmaking when deciding where to live. One of those tools is what we've called the MobiScore. It exists also on the northern part of the country. Basically, the MobiScore is a label giving you an accessibility index and proximity information. So we look at basically what is available around as mobility services. We look at what you can access within several cutoffs. We look at all the point of interest where you live, well, your life, sorry, happens. So the shops, the schools, the healthcare centers, and so on around. And then we grant an accessibility score to help you understand and yeah, the context and your mobility environment. What we also do are accessibility studies. We have recently, so I've shown you some of them at the beginning of the presentation. We have also released an analysis of the accessibility of the park and rides network in Brussels, for example, to show also that it is a very good idea, but we need to think it a bit more carefully because as is, it's hardly changing habits. It's still a bit too not enough, sorry, accessible for the city center. We also are developing currently tools for proximity studies, so going from the broader picture to the smaller one. The idea here is to allow anyone looking for a new spot to live or to work to assess a bit its environment and to understand what he or she will be able to do mobility-wise or lifestyle-wise and activity-wise, looking at basically all the points of interest, comparing, for example, the Parvis Saint-Gilles to the Place de la Vaillance in Anderlecht, and that gives you immediately an idea of the density of point of interest and what you can expect to do regarding your mobility habits and your lifestyle. And we believe it's a very important tool should you want to, for example, continue using your bike on a daily basis, and so on. Voila, that's what we do, and we are very focused and excited about at the moment. At Stumlink, our thesis and our mission is to make sure that tomorrow's mobility is accessible and is a reality for everyone and everywhere. And we want to do that by expanding a bit the scope of the mobility as a service, at least the way it is thought of today. And to bring tools to the people to make sure that the lifestyle is in adequation with the mobility habits. We hold a vision for the future of mobility as a service that is more inclusive and accessible, that is multi-channel. So we believe that we should go beyond the mobile phone and also reach out population who have no access to those advanced digital tools. We believe a lot in open data and technologies, and that's probably why we're talking to you tonight and and we have something interesting for you. So hold on, please, on that topic especially. As I said at the beginning, we also trying to focus a bit more on the demand side, recognizing that current trends in mobility is putting a lot of emphasis on the supply side, but mobility habits need to be still anchored and needs to go beyond the opportunistic one-off experience and become really something that you experience daily. And we believe in a broader definition of the user experience, again, going further than only the digital tools and the mobile phone especially, and bringing back trust and a sense of control to the users of the multimodal networks. And yeah, pretty face and pretty team, very motivated about all those objectives and to realize our mission. One more thing before I leave you to maybe a few questions. None of the above could have been done without open data and open technologies, and we must confess it. We use a lot of them, as most of the mobility players do, I believe. And there are many brains and initiatives ongoing in Belgium and abroad related to open data and to open technology, and you will have a good glimpse of them all tonight. But there is a but. There are currently limited cross-communities and cross-sector initiatives ongoing, and I can speak from experience. A lot is happening in the academic world, in the private world, in the non-profit world, in the north of the country, the south of the country, but limited cross-communities and cross-sector initiatives. We have a limited, therefore, view on all ongoing initiatives, and more important, the focus is today put more on open data, and open data is obviously the basis of any good mobility solution, but there is a lot of focus put on it and less so on the underlying open source technologies, and the open source technologies will be also the enablers and yeah, the enablers of change, because yeah, whatsoever, if you produce open data but you don't then spread the technology to use them, it can become a bit useless. And the existing mobility ecosystem, at least in Belgium, are very much business oriented. What we need, and it's a bit of a question for you all, but have you ever heard of La Fabrique de Mobilité, la FabMob? La Fabrique de Mobilité and Gabriel and Amandine, yeah, please forgive me if I'm saying any stupidities, but it's basically a network of organization coming from both the private, the public sector, academics, and the whole point is to build bridges and to build an ecosystem that is sharing what they call commons. So piece of technologies, piece of open data, challenges that could be tackled together and that could benefit to everyone in the ecosystem. And I know that Gabriel and Amandine have been doing a great work at deploying several similar network in France, in Quebec, and for a number of years willing to launch a similar initiative in Belgium. And tonight might be their night, finally, I hope so. A Belgian open transport ecosystem would allow to foster innovation and spread the knowledge in the field of mobility. And I believe that although there are many initiatives, as I said, we can still benefit from each other a lot more. A Belgian open transport ecosystem would also allow to advocate for the role of open source and open data. There are already many organizations doing a great job in the field of open source and open data. And mobility is one of the key domains in which open source and data and open source technologies are of the utmost important. Yet, we lack sharing knowledge together. We lack experiencing together, and a Belgian open transport ecosystem would be the right place to advocate for the role of that as a key element also for making tomorrow's mobility reality for all, addressing the need of specific population, making sure that tomorrow's mobility is inclusive, is open, and not only business oriented. It would also allow to build bridges inside our beloved country amongst academics, as I said, startups, public authorities, businesses, very much important. And also very important to build bridge internationally, both with the existing Fabrique de Mobilité network, but also with other similar initiatives. Still, from the inside, I have the strong feeling that we're sometimes looking a bit too much at our own plate. So would like to take the opportunity of tonight's meetup to call for all the curious amongst yourself to join us. I have the chance to already have a few very, very strong sponsors around me to build up this initiative. So thank you, Paul, Xavier, Julian, and Astrid. I'm pretty sure that you know most of them, but are already working in very established organization, working for open data, working in the mobility field. But we'd like to now extend the call to any interested parties, providing that we want to keep it a bottom-up and very pragmatic approach. So trying to constitute a group of 15, 20 motivated people and gather and list all the initiatives, the ongoing initiatives, make sure that information is flowing transparently, and then identifying one or two collaboration use cases. We already have a list of potential candidates, but we'd like to do that together and bottom up, and then prove the opportunity for such an open transport Belgian ecosystem by trying to tackle one or two use cases before validating the launch of the ecosystem. So it's still very early stage, but we have everyone we need around the table from all the sectors, and feel free, please, to reach me out should you be interested to join. Voilà. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, François. So we have some questions. Don't hesitate to ask questions using the chat. Had the train connection been taken into account for the public transport mobility in Brussels? I'm thinking about the S4 train line connecting Delta Station, southeast of Brussels, to Jet Station, north of Brussels, in about 20 minutes.
Yes. We are considering all the, but I would be happy to share further data. I don't see. Well, I can quit this to see who. But yes, we've taken all the available and latest schedule to do that. So, but to whoever asked, I can share some data.
Are you talking about ordinary bike or e-bike also included?
No, yeah.
The same exercise with Brussels as a starting point.
So no, that study was looking at regular bike, but we could run it for e-bikes. It's a good point. Yeah.
Why can I no? All the others questions, it's okay. It's about Fabrique de Mobilité. It's a great point to have another one in Belgium.
So yeah, obviously, if we have a few minutes, I don't know if Gabriel or Amandine want to build up a bit about what the FAMOB is. I don't know, Bertrand, if we have.
Yes, we can get a few minutes to talk about it if Amandine or Gabriel wants to talk about it.
Hi. Hi from Paris. I don't know if Gabriel is here, but nice to meet you. I'm Amandine Richaud-Crom, and I am the executive director of the Fabric of Mobility. And I'm very happy to be here because it's a very big step to have another FabMob in Europe. Because we have one in Canada, in Montreal, and we are working on a new one in the African continent, Senegal, or maybe Tanzania, but we don't have one. We have one in Italy, but not yet. It's in process, and now we have one in Belgium, and it's really great because the pattern of FabMob is very unique, and it's an initiative very powerful because like Stumlik said before, there is a lack of connection, a lack of link, a lack of interaction between different stakeholders in mobilities. And it's really important to have this space to work together and to be faster than any other organization to transform the mobilities. And not only mobilities, but also economics and cities and governmental organization and a lot of things. It's really important. So it's why we are very happy and to work with open source method and create commons together. So please, if you are interested to work with us and work with the Belgium FabMob, we can be in contact, and we can talk about why it's so important for you and for us to work together. And I don't know if it's really quick because I wasn't supposed to be here. So please, you can contact us or anything, and we can try to answer to a question. But please keep in touch with the new FabMob in Belgium, because I think they are going to do great thing. And the French FabMob is unique in Europe. It's a non-profit organization, and I think we have a lot of things to work together. I would like to have a FabMob in Germany. We were working with I think it was a HEI German lab, but with the context in Europe and everything, it's quite difficult. But yes, maybe one day, and we hope so. And we are going to have one maybe in a few months in Spain. So yes, but Africa is for now our great goal, because it's so new and so different, and we can do so many things with low tech.
Mais après, c'est une question.
Sorry.
It was François, so it's okay.
Okay. So thank you, and I think I'm done for now. And please, we keep in touch.
Thanks a lot, Amandine. So now, Xavier, this is your turn. So you can share your screen.
Thank you, Bertrand. And just first of all, I'd like to thank Kizio Digital and FabMob for organizing all together this event tonight, and to thank you all for joining us tonight. It's really nice to have so many people from France, from Belgium. So glad to share our views on mobility tonight. We must excuse one presentation. Actually, it was about bike data. Unfortunately, Dries could not be available tonight. So I will present two aspects of mobility, two completely different aspects. and I'll start with the first one, which is a new concept we would like to launch, and we are launching, but we would like to work with all of you. It's the concept of sightseeing as a service, and I'll make a 10-minute presentation to show you what we have in mind and how we could all cooperate in the field. So the concept, actually, but before the concept, excuse me, give me a minute. Actually, our company is a small company based in Brussels. It's been okay. I think someone is using his microphone. So if you can just close the microphone, thank you. Our company is a Brussels-based company. It's been founded 25 years ago. And originally, we've been working much in consulting and public space design. But for a few years now, we're expanding our activities to consider things like change management, especially regarding MaaS, and also virtual reality. And I'll present this afterwards. And so we developed a lab called Maestro Mobile. And the idea is let people know more about mobility and really experiment mobility in an interesting way. And with this lab, we are currently thinking about sightseeing as a service, as a part of the city as a service, and MaaS and mobility as a service. And I will give you a few words about that. Our concept is called Stop by Step, because it's meant as a touristic tour, city tour actually, where people can just stroll around the city, discover things about specific topics, but at the same time they can actually discover new mobility solutions. And we believe, because we've been experimenting a lot of experimentation projects regarding MaaS, we believe that for some people MaaS will never work if we just bring MaaS as a block, as a unit, as an app and as an ecosystem. They must first discover MaaS and the new mobility options when they're relaxed, when they're, with the family or with friends, just having fun in a city. And this is why we believe this would be an interesting block to start and to develop MaaS projects around the tourist with the concept of sightseeing as a service. Our first concept is an urban game of 1 to 4 people, like 2-3 hours in the city. We try to be COVID-19, meeting the COVID-19 constraints, using a mobile app. But what's really important is testing new mobility service. When playing that game, people should try those new mobility services. How things work, we have an app powered by one of our partners, which is Oh My Guide, and this app is a quite classic, I would say, app for serious gaming, but that we adapt to the context of an urban game. What's new, actually, it's that we, as I said, at certain moments, people need to go from A to B, and they will discover the city. And once they're fully in the game, that they really want to challenge themselves and they really want to earn points and to get to get the victory, then we will propose them, okay, you can take the slow path and walk, like most people do when they are visiting a city, or you can take the active or the fast path. And then we offer them vouchers at that specific moment when, okay, just jump on a bike, jump on a shared bike, on a shared e-scooter, kick scooter, or take public transport, or if you need to go a bit further, then get on a ride-hailing or taxi service, or even use car sharing. This is the idea, to really bring MaaS into this challenge, as you can see on the picture. Which is also interesting that we want is to add all the technologies, the new and existing technologies, like virtual reality, augmented reality, like very, very basic things like tasting, like a Lego game into the game, because we of course believe that people are children and they need to play, they need to have fun, and in that way we're trying to build an open ecosystem so that people building things in virtual reality, augmented reality, anything can get on board of our platform. As I was saying, we've been trying with our another partner, XR Intelligence. We developed an app for making the city more livable with augmented reality techniques. As you can see here, we have an app, and the smartphone can detect elements in the city, like on a building or anything, and then we will add a new layer of augmented reality for improving the game experience. We're also working with the third partner, which is a Credos Animation, because we want not to make it too techy. We actually want to make it like a cartoon. We really want people to enter the world of the children, and this is why we're working with all these partners to make it nice, a bit childish sometimes, but people should really feel they're playing a game as a Boy Scout. Our first project is called Les Fantômes de Bruxelles, so the ghost of Brussels, Bruxelles being the ancient name of Brussels. And this trip, this tour, is going to different places and is telling people about the hidden history of those places, which is quite interesting. For the moment, it's a new project. It's only available in French, but of course, with the help of our partners, we will develop that in other languages and of course on other topics. So we're trying to enhance the beauty, the quality of our urban heritage. Like, as you can see here, this is Al Saint-Géry, which is one of our partners, but we are partnering with Tour and Taxi, with La Monnaie, and with a lot of actors who have beautiful things to show to Brussels people, Belgian people, and we hope in the future international people when the crisis is over. Another partnership which is quite interesting, we want to work with illustrators, and we discovered those bande dessinée. I don't know how we say that in English, I don't remember. And it's interesting because they allowed us to use a lot of the images that were produced in those 3 bande dessinée, and at the end of the game, people can win actually those volumes, which is quite interesting. We have, for the moment, the support of Visit Brussels, the Brussels region, and all the other partners, and we really want to make an open platform. This is the idea, to have an open platform, but before saying this, I will just show you how things work. So this is the app. You geolocalize with the app. You will give the name of your team. You will make a small selfie, and then you will start the game. And step by step, you will be brought to different places. And we tell you that at some point we will propose to use new mobility options. For some people who know Maestro Mobile, we actually completely reversed the concept. It's 6 years now that we invented a city game that was focusing on mobility. In this case, it's exactly the contrary. It's not focusing on mobility, it's focusing on the city, on tourism, but trying to make people experiment at least a few mobility options. And if a group tests a kick scooter or a shade bike or discover a new metro station, we are happy, because this is the first step to mass. And this is how we try to bring people into the mass ecosystem without forcing them to embrace the whole mobility offer. I was talking about the augmented reality option. This is the other app we're using. We're using 2 apps, and as you can see, in this case, people can download this app free. Excuse me, I'm going back because I went too quick. They can download both apps on the stores, and again, at a certain moment, they will need to use augmented reality to solve an enigma. And in this case, you see, this is something I recorded this afternoon on the street, and you see this augmented reality option. And the enigma is that those 4 guys, they're telling something in an escape game approach, and you need to find the answer to the enigma. And if you find the right answer, then you will go further in the quest somehow. And this is how we use this technology. The question is, are you the next partner? We intend to make, trips, parcours, tours about anything that's special first for Brussels, but of course we're open to other cities in Belgium, in France, anywhere. And we have in mind, we are already working on a tour for jazz in Brussels. Also in cooperation with La Monnaie, we want to talk about the opera, the history of opera in Brussels. And a third topic, we are starting to work on a tour about the history of STIB, of the local public transport. And of course, you can imagine it can be very useful because people who use the vehicles could go and discover the art in specific metro stations and so on, and discover the story behind public transport in Brussels. Our team, 8 people plus 2 new guys that are joining the team very recently. We are a private company with the public soul, and we're very open for discussions about this interesting project. I think we believe. Thank you for your interest, and I'm available for any questions on the topic. Thank you, comics. This was the word I was looking for.
Thanks a lot, Xavier.
So I don't think there are especially questions. So the thing is, do not hesitate to contact us. We have the technology. We never develop our own technology. We are not a technology company. We are experimentation company. We buy technologies and we adapt them to the context. So if you have ideas, if you want to join us for this mass ecosystem specific for tourism, you're more than welcome. So I'll know if people using the app have incentive to use some mobility services. They don't have incentives. It's free for them. Because we have, it's a very good question because I was quick. I didn't want to take too much of your time, but actually we have partnerships with companies like Lime, with Dot, with Billy Bikes, with Uber and so on. We have those partnerships. And when playing the game, the trip is free. So they just get a voucher code for using the service. We even bought a day ticket to STIB. We bought it by themselves because it's not free for the moment. We hope that, I know that there are some people from STIB. Someday when we have a critical mass, we hope that maybe we can have some interesting partnership in this film. But the idea is you play the game and you have free vouchers for moving during the trip. Are we deployed in any other cities? Not yet. I mean, it's a new concept, but we're open to any development, and this is why it's really meant as a shared platform. It's a shared platform for public institutions, for mass providers, and so on. We need to build this sighting as a service concept altogether. Thank you for your questions. If there are any other questions, so you'll find the information on the Stop by Step website. It's a new concept. The official version of the first tool will be launched in April, and you will be more than welcome to test it and afterwards to come back to us if you want to develop that in your context. Is it free for the user? No, the tour is not free. It's around, we're still a bit looking at the business model, but we think that the price for a team of 4 people will be between 25 and 40 euro, depending on what's included in the tour. If there's some virtual reality experiment and so on, it will be a bit more expensive. But mobility, at least one trip with a shared bike or a shared step and so on, will be free. It will be part of our partnership. And then in that case, it will be included in the price. No extra price for that. Okay, thank you for your interest. If you have questions on that topic, do not hesitate to put it in the chat. I will now move to something completely different, but of course related to mobility. Which is another lab that we founded a year ago with our partners from XR Intelligence. I will share my screen. Just a moment. Here we go. So the Space Lab, it's a partnership between XR Intelligence, a Brussels-based company as well, and Espace Mobilité. It's just a partnership. It's no joint venture. It's just that for the architecture, engineering, public space mobility sector, we decided to join our forces. The idea behind this Space Lab is to help city planners, to help all the actors working on public space and mobility topics to have a better view of what they're doing, and to actually work with new tools to have a prospective view, a prospective design and cooperative design of what they are proposing. And we have actually 4 steps or four pillars in our ambition. One is design, cooperative design, design thinking. One is visualization, 3D visualization. And what's new, it's immersion and simulation. I will show you this with 4 use case. The first one, it's about design. In the case of Wavre, the city of Wavre, we just mentioned that the accessibility of that town was not that great, but at least they are renovating the city center. We are the consultancy, the designer for that project, but we wanted to add a layer of design and visualization. So as usual, actually, when you start a project, you take the two-dimension plans available in the city to see the streets, the squares, and so on. And then we will add another layer, which is for example, AutoCAD plan, where we will design our projects. And this is one of the important square in Wavre, for those who know, Place Cardinal Mercier. Then we will use open data, like in Brussels, we have an excellent database, which is Urbis 3D. In the Walloon region, it's coming up, for example, in Namur, but it's not available for the whole territory, which is, of course, much bigger than the Brussels region. And then we integrate those elements into our tools. Then we will build up the situation, the local situation, with using those different 3D assets. And we will even take photographs of the buildings to make it very close to the reality. And as you can see, we have the different buildings here shown on the SketchUp model. Then what's really interesting, we will use cooperative tool for designing the project. And this is where virtual reality comes into action. Where is my video? Okay, it's loading. So this is the kind of tool we're using. And you see exactly what I was saying on the plan and on the image, but I'm using the VR headset, and I'm taking my 3D model as a maquette, sorry, I don't know, as a scale model, and I can jump into my public space. As you can see, I just jump into it. I'm alone in my environment for the moment, but we could be 10 of people, and instead of using Zoom or Teams, we are using this VR platform for cooperating. And so we're moving around in the space and discussing about, okay, no, I don't really believe this is a good option here. Do you meant to have trees or water in that city street and so on? So we really have the possibility to interact in this. We have different tools, like you can have an issue tracking tool, and we create an issue and we let a comment like, okay, there's a problem with this building, be careful, because if we make a new thing on the public space, there might be some issues. And as you can see, I can come closer and anyone can see my comment, my virtual comment in the public space. I have other tools like measuring a place, like, okay, but actually this street is almost 14 meters wide. Very useful as urbanists or city planners to know all those things. I can design a lot of things, and this is the kind of tool we're using. Finally, when we're happy by the design, but what we want to achieve, then we will move to another tool, another software, which is in our case Twinmotion. And then we will texture texture the environment and animate it with 3D animated models. And those are the different phases: AutoCAD, SketchUp, Twinmotion, and finally it will look like this. So very realistic environment, very helpful for citizens, politicians, technicians to talk about the project and to show how things could look like in the future after the works have been made. I will move now to another visualization. So the second use case was made for STIB 2 years ago, the autonomous shuttle of STIB. It was STIB asked us to model this autonomous shuttle and to see actually how it would look like, but also to show people that it's completely acceptable to have an autonomous shuttle even in a pedestrian area, and that the cohabitation between pedestrian, cyclists, and an autonomous shuttle would work fine. And here you can see how things work. If we have a bit of time afterwards, my colleague Dario could show you directly in the VR system how things work and how people can actually get an immersion experimentation. And as you can see, it's very close from reality. This is now reality. This was the video footage made by STIB. It's very close from what we had designed a few months before the launch. Then I will move now to what we have really in mind with this space lab. This is public consultation, because 95, even maybe 99% of people cannot read a plan. But this is only what's available during public consultation and public inquiry. This is why we believe that those tools can be useful. Again, the 3D visualization made for STIB and the municipality of Anderlecht in Brussels. But what's more interesting is we let people immerse the environment, and they can, with a VR headset, go into the project and give a clear opinion about what they see. They can find it great, they can hate it because no parking space anymore, not enough trees in the environment, so on. But at least it's a very democratic approach, because people see what's coming up, and then they can send their opinion to the municipality for improvement. As you can see, they used it. The municipality of Anderlecht used it. This is the mayor here with her colleague, and they made a lot of promotion of this system, and they bought the VR headset and the system to be autonomous, and know in the future for any public space project in the municipality, they will use those VR techniques with our support. The tool can also be useful for designing, like in this way. We can work with citizens and say, okay, you would like to have a tree or to have a bench in the environment. How would this look like, and so on. So it's very agile. It's a way that's very agile for changing things and showing scenarios. The idea is not to say it's not the final project. This is what we had in mind, but we still have a margin for improving using citizen participation. It's linked to low-tech. We're also using very low-tech techniques because we don't want to blur people with VR technology. So we are using very, very basic tools as well, but the combinations of those basic and very high-tech tools have been proven as very, very efficient and very powerful. And the last project, which is about simulation, something we made for Bruxelles Mobilité. Most of you know that the region of Brussels is now, the speed limit is 30 kilometers per hour on most axes, except the main axis. And we build a simulator using eye tracking techniques. And here you see the city that we designed, which is very similar to Brussels. And actually we are using VR techniques and eye tracking techniques for measuring what people see in the VR headsets. And with those heat map, we see what people actually see and in what direction they're looking to. You can see it very clearly here. You see that the person has identified that a woman was crossing the street. It was in red, and we have all those metrics, all those analytics available. This this was possible actually to show that using VR, when driving at 50 kilometers per hour, the vision angle was around 80 degrees compared to 3 kilometers per hour where it was wider and more than 100 degrees, showing exactly the effect that we expect from a city with a 3 kilometer speed limit. And it was made with hundreds of people. And during the summer, we organized a city 30 tour in Brussels. And as you can see, many people could try the simulator. VR for mobility and public space. Yes, I said it. Public consultation, co-creation, education, evaluation. This is the idea, to have those tools made available for as many people as possible. And we know that in the learning pyramid, VR and AR techniques are very good for retaining information, for reminding, yes, you get it, because the practice by doing is very important. Open data for VR, yes, of course, because it's not only a question of open data for doing maps, it's also for 3D assets. Those are all the 3D assets that we build ourselves, but we have to design by ourselves. Our idea is to have an open community where any architects, urban designers, public transport operators, city planners can have access to the same assets, which are local minded, because the bus of STIB is not the same as the one from Tech or from RATP. So we really need to have those databases locally to make sure that our projects look like our city. I thank you for your attention, and of course, again, I'm available for any question. Thank you. So,
thanks a lot. Very impressive.
So, if I may, I just have a look at is VR really more accessible than architect plan? Yes, definitely. We tried with children. We tried with people over 80 years. Yes, the question, there is technology, but for people, when they have the VR headsets on their heads, they understand the project, and this is the case. And understanding the project is not the same as agreeing with the project, but this is democracy. People should understand the project, and this is why we're investing in this field. Could we use it like Gather Town?
No, Gather Town.
What's Gather Town? I don't know that.
Gather Town is a tool to organize virtual meeting, but more friendly than Zoom or this kind of thing. You can create environments and design things, but it's not like this. It's more simple.
But because I want Paul to have time for his presentation, for those who have still a bit of time afterwards, I can show you live a platform we're using, which is even more powerful because you can directly integrate 3D assets and you can really make a cooperative design with a lot of people. And so I can take a tram of STIB, I can take a bus stop, I can take a Cambio car, I can take anything into my environment and just design what I want. So this is we at Espace Mobilité, we expect to build 10 VR headsets in the coming weeks, and we will get not rid of Zoom, but for some specific projects, we will only work in VR, not anymore with the Zoom, because it's somehow outdated for our business. Can you give an idea for the Anderlecht project? For designing, we were the designer of the project for STIB. Designing a project, a big public space project for the 3D design, it will be between 10 and 25K, depending on the scale of the project. But the cost of the VR headsets, the computer and so on, for the municipality of Anderlecht, it was 10K. 10K with the support, the training, the configuration of the software and so on, and 1 year's support. So it's affordable for a municipality. It's not, I mean, it's not that easy to get that money, but it's not, I'm not talking about 100K. Is the ID worked by, okay, thank you. Thanks, Gabriel, very inspiring, thank you. Okay, thank you. So for those who have time, we can still discuss about those projects, but I'd like to give the floor to Paul for his very interesting projects in a thing that I strongly believe we need for moving from individual transport to mass. Thank you to all.
Thanks, Xavier. So Paul, it's up to you.
Yes, hi, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, it's okay for me.
Okay, I'll share my screen on the presentation. Okay, here it is. I'll 15 minutes of presentation. Can you see my presentation on the screen?
Yes, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay, a small introduction. Thanks, Bertrand, for inviting me to explain the ideas that we're working on. I've been working in mobility now for about 5 years, first for Delane in digital transformation, and also since about a year now for the Department of Mobility in Flanders on the MAAS ecosystem as a consultant. And next to that, as a volunteer, I also founded Brussels My Data Hub. That means that My Data is an NGO, a global NGO, who is working on giving the citizen back the control of his data. And so I think it's a very interesting movement. And so in mobility, because I'm working in mobility, we set up a project called My Mobility Profile, in which we will gather all of the data related to my mobility and put it in a personal data pot, my mobility profile pot, and then build a consent operator, because you need to manage the consent of who you share your data with. And in this way, resolving a number of cases and enabling sustainable mobility for the future. We are currently working with Solid, which is the personal data platform started by Tim Berners-Lee as an open source platform a few years back. Tim Berners-Lee was the inventor of the internet. And in this project, we can enable, if we can bring all of our data as a person together, for me, for my family, then we can give you a dashboard stating that you have done this amount of data on foot, with your car, with your bike, with the CO2 scores, and also combine a budget, because the mobility budget for an average family goes up to between 15 and 20% of your annual family budget. And this is interesting data that we can first gather, because the GDPR has given us the means to gather that data by just requesting it from the digital providers that store our data. But also we can give this to the company that I work for. We can give this to the city that I live in or that I want to go to, in order to get sustainable and a better mobility offer for the future. And so why is this important? Is because we need to be able to personalize the experience of mobility. As said by François already, my home and my work address is an important asset of my identity. And so if you look at the identity of my profile in mobility, we have first of all identity and my subscriptions, also my average walking speed, my disability attributes, maybe if I have a guide dog, if I have a wheelchair. So such things are important, which is the profile of my identity and my context. This is also how Google Maps got up to 90%, 88% market share in most of the markets, because they know all these things and they can personalize my mobility based not just on what they know of me, but also because they know my intention. Then you have to be able to load your history of mobility over all of the modes, what I do with my car, what I do with my electric bike, what I do in public transport, and for any mode that I use in my mobility. And then the rest of it is around where's my location, what is the context of me going to work, going on holiday, going shopping, and my specific interest in intent profiling that we need for the future. And now, why is this important, you would say? Well, the thing is that today we see a lot of providers, a lot of route planners. If we talk about your TomTom in your car, if we talk about City Map or Google Maps, Smart to Antwerp, Slim naar Antwerpen, the route planner of the lane, Skipper and the others, they're all building their own profile of their customers and doing it all separately, and everybody creates their own silos. What we think is that there's an opportunity if we can level the playing field by centralizing the data around the user, disconnecting the data from the individual apps, and creating in this way a way to do faster growth and level playing field offer for data of the individual, because you can then give your data to the one who gives you the best offer based on your personal requirements. And some of the applications that we're now thinking about with the consortium partners around IMEC, around PwC, around carsharing.be are, for instance, setting up centralized services so you can offer services of subscriptions, of identity, of attributes throughout the customer journey, allowing the other players to improve the services and the targeted offers that you offer to the customer. Another example of why this is important is that we've looked at the work that is being done by Gabriel Plassa and the people from FabMop in France, who've developed an open source tracker. And we're looking at reusing this tracker to build the profiling of, allowing me as a user to connect and to share my mobility data and being able to track on a monthly basis what I do on foot, with my bike, with my car, and with any transport that I use. And then building a profile that allows me to share that with the car sharing providers, and who then, based on my profile and my data, are able to get more customers because they can advise me. If I have 2 family cars, they can advise me a better budget based on, here in this opportunity, you can save this much money, and you can take a subscription between, for instance, one car that you own and another car that you own, that you just use regularly from a Cambio or any of the other car sharing providers. Another thing is, which is there important, is that today, for instance, if we rent a car, we have to copy the paper driver's license. Now I have one of these Belgian paper driver's license of 1982, which is like a very old folding three-page paper that we have to put on the copy machine. That is an outdated service that in this way, some of these services like taxes and license copying could be automated. And I think that's one of the possibilities that we have using this data. Another one is traffic management as a service, because today we have a lot of silos of data in mobility. There is initiatives like in Ghent offering traffic management as a service. Now, if you can connect all of that data of the users with their consent, you can offer things like, this is the very famous traffic jam before the Kennedy Tunnel from Ghent to Antwerp. If you can identify the people who are in the car, and you can, if the length of the traffic jam comes to a certain degree, you can automatically divert people and give them an incentive to use the alternative now payable Liefkeshoek tunnel at €6. You can incentivize the people from the city of Antwerp to take that and to reduce the traffic jams. And that's the kind of use cases that we're now looking at in setting up the pilot. And we have been inspired by France, by Gabriel Plassa and the people from Mon Compte Mobilité in France, who are already implementing some of those use cases. For instance, in covoiturage, when you are in the car with 3 people, carpooling in Belgium, and you declare that you are driving together, and you can really prove this by sending that data and sharing that data with the mobility authority or with companies, you can get a direct tax benefit. That's a real tangible benefit for the user based on sharing that data from your mobility account. And so what is happening in general, and this is a story about governments. We see, first of all, that Europe, over the last 2 years, has developed this European data strategy. It's an important movement, and it's key to the European Commission agenda today, that the digital European strategy is core for creating this fair data economy that we want to enable, with the user in control, with the citizen in control of his own data. And so what Europe has announced, the common European data spaces, is for about 9 different sectors, important sectors, of which mobility is in the central, offering subsidies in Horizon Europe in a number of calls coming up, ways to share data on industry data of the PTOs, of the different providers, of the mass providers, of stations and mobility data and open data. First of all, to a national access point, which already exists on transportdata.be, but also giving us the opportunity to connect our personal data in this cross-sectoral personal data space now in this project, My Mobility Profile, which will be established from now to the summer, and which will hopefully start building about in September. Our pilot will connect and will share that personal data to the industry players in context. Now, in Finland, the government has already also started implementing Helsinki as the first city as a My Data operator to do that. And also in Flanders, very important announcement in September by the Prime Minister Jan Jambon, is that they want to set up what they call a Flemish data utility. Thinking about, as a government, we're now using part of the relaunch budget in Flanders to think about a new way of dealing with data and giving it back to the user, and using the human-centric fair data economy to power our relaunch in Flanders, but also on a federal level in Belgium. We think that we are all citizens and we have an ideal opportunity there. And so in our pilot with University of Ghent, with a number of providers like Kronos on the building side, like Digital Flanders, EMEC and others, we have already developed a number of ideas in our collaborative effort. For instance, De Lijn as an operator, about automating the research on my mobility movement. As I said, being able to track and to profile everything around me and my mobility profile is something that can be of benefit to authorities, to operators and to others. In the case of the Department of Mobility, today we have what we call the onderzoek verplaatsingsgedrag, the research on the global movement of Flemish citizens from the Department of Mobility. Now, today this is done by people filling in enquêtes, filling in leaflets of their daily transport, and then putting it all together in a traditional data warehouse, where in Holland, they already have 10,000 people with an app checking and controlling and mapping that on an everyday basis with the consent of those users, which the digital transformation of that research on mobility is something that we can put the user in control, the citizen in control. And as said, for instance, the Save on car sharing is one, but also Route, who is a small SME in our network, in our consortium, is looking at how can we power the leisure trails, and for that occasion also the trips, the city trips that Xavier ordered before, by really powering that by the data of us as users ourselves. And I think that is a part of the idea that we are developing in Flanders. It's now, as a part of the relaunch being thought about, and we are putting together a plan to build a pilot, and we want to present that to the Flemish government in the summer, in order to start building after the summer, but it's all in open source. So everything we built should be transferable to any other area. Also, what Gabriel is building in France with Mon Compte Mobilité is also based on that open source perspective that is able to be ported to any other region. Another important thing is that if you are cross-border mobility user as a traveler, we have set up a Benelux Living Lab, and you can find the YouTube URL and look at what they have developed in Holland as a mass pilot in the city of Maastricht and in a number of other cities in Holland. And there they are using the common data spaces, Gaia X industrial data spaces architecture to already share data on the supply side, which we need to connect in the next step with our personal data pilot to that industry ecosystem and authority ecosystem that is already in place in the pilots in Holland. So that is, I think, the Flemish pilot connecting to the Benelux level cross-border is very important and a very interesting evolution in the market that I wanted to share with you today. The big picture for me is that the mobility sector is now ready to connect personal data that we need to power the My Mobility Europe and to build with Europe the human fair data economy, where the Flanders and Benelux Living Lab opportunities are some of the projects that can happen. But on a federal level, of course, it's if this is reusable. In the Benelux Living Lab, also Wallonie is one of the regions who participates in this Benelux Euro-region pilot from Hasselt to Maastricht to Aachen in Germany, to Luxembourg and to Liège in Wallonie. And so we're very excited that we can go there. If you want to look at some more details, there is the sessions that we set up in the My Data conference, you can find in the slides. And finally, let me see that I have 5 minutes left. I just would like to also invite the people who are interested in the topic of the citizen in charge of their own data to the Open Belgium session on 26th of March around personal data governance and towards a fair data economy, with a number of people from the World Economic Forum and from My Data, who will present some of the data governance mechanisms, new data governance mechanisms like data cooperatives by the citizens, data trusts by the citizens that are now emerging in the market, and that's have the task of being able to manage the data of the individual in a more ethical way by society. So that's short what I wanted to introduce to you today. And if you have any questions, please go ahead. And if you have interest, please attend the Open Belgium session as well. Thank you very much. I'll stop sharing.
Thanks a lot, Paul. Very interesting presentation. I remember when we met 2 years ago, we were talking about that already.
Yes, this has been an idea that has been, My Data has been around for 8 years, is an idea, but it's taken a while, both on technology, like Solid and other platforms emerging in the market. It's also been a while for the legislation and for the idea of the European data strategy. And now also the Data Governance Act, which will be voted by the European Commission in a few months, will establish the idea of personal data and data intermediaries who will be managed by some kind of authority. And so people will have the data sharing as a central cornerstone of this new Europe powered by data. And I think that's an exciting evolution in the market. It is still early days because there's no real platforms with millions of users in the market yet, but I think it's the right time now to start building and then slowly growing towards more and more people using that as a technology and as a system.
There's a question from Guillaume Savona. Hello, Paul. What are the difficulties you are facing to implement and spread this tool? And what about Brussels?
The difficulties to build it is, first of all, it is a lot of the stakeholders, being authorities, governments, cities, large companies, are currently still thinking organization-centric in business models and in governance. We're actually putting the human in the center of our development, which has explained the success of Google, Amazon, and the other big players, putting design thinking centrally around the user, and then creating an agile way of continuous improvement towards improving the touch points and the pain points of the customer journey. That is something that in a digital transformation world of Google and the other big players is already being done for a number of years. But today our current stakeholders are still based on a more traditional model, which has to define, for instance, a project beforehand for 10 years and then put a tender in the market to build it as a definite project. And that is some of the things that need to evolve. We see that the STIP, for instance, is already working on new ways of procurement. The pre-commercial procurement, for instance, is an innovation mechanism for procurement in which the citizen movement data in Brussels, Muntstroom is an example of that, is something that the STIP put in an alternative, innovative way of procuring the right platforms and being able to go a different way and speed up the innovation in order to get that data together and to get that data to connect to all of the different users in the market. Not just the people, if you get the movement data from the STIP on when people are accessing at what time the public transport, and you can offer that with the consent of the user, and if not with the consent of the user, if it's anonymized, then you can connect the car sharing and the step sharing providers to that, and they can optimize the delivery of the user when he gets out of the public transport at that time, having an availability optimized for the steps that he needs or the other transport that he might use. So that is the kind of evolution that's now happening, and the procurement process is difficult. It still needs to happen. The stakeholders still need to be evangelized. So there's still on a number of platform process and people side, there needs to happen still some changes, but we see that we now have a current momentum to at least have a room for experiments to allow us to test all of those things, and that's a very positive evolution, I think.
Thanks a lot. Is there any other question? What are the main blockers to develop a data gathering system such as ride-hailing in France? I don't know if you know covoiturage.beta.gov.fr.
Yeah, I give it as an example for what we are inspired by in France, that this is already happening. Today, that this is something where I work for the Department of Mobility, and this is something which is not yet today evangelized as a real case that we could do, both from the city, Antwerp, for instance, who has been very innovative in setting up smart ways to Antwerp and setting up also digital twins and smart mobility in the city of Antwerp. They're now looking at testing incentives. And testing incentives mean that you have to be able to connect the citizen and onboard a large crowd of citizens that have that app and that actually are able to connect with a number of partners to do this kind of concept. And I think there we want to do this, but there's still a number of steps to take in order to get there. And I think cities will be one of the prime stakeholders to evolve in that, because they're already investing a lot in mobility. And next to that, the authority. We also have, there's a difference between France and Belgium also, because we have different levels of government which need to decide on. NMBS, SNCB is federal authority, De Lijn is Flemish authority. And so there's a number of issues that we have to tackle in order to be able to set up such a program, but it is the intention to do that.
And do you think it could come from a private company?
I think it's something that we are now, for instance, in Flanders, we're setting up Maasafsprakenkader. That's a regulatory co-creation exercise with all of the stakeholders in the market that are talking about how should we share data and how should we proceed with innovation. And there, all of the different public and private companies are talking together on what's missing. What is the data user journey that we see in the market? And this should be open. We have a number of open mobility ecosystems exercises in Flanders that we are looking at. For instance, in Vloka, the Flemish open city architecture, in which, for instance, the now being rolled out Mobi points, hop-in points in Flanders, with about 1,000 points that will be rolled out for multimodal hubs. There's a discussion, there's a workshop tomorrow on how can public services and private providers combine data in order to offer new services. And it is one of the intentions also of the European Innovation Program around data to enable this local SME economy. So in our project, for instance, the small SME Route U, who is a mass mapping provider for tourist guides, for routing tours, they are participating to use this data and use this application to build new commercial propositions towards their users. So I think this it's very important that if we set something up, that the local small economy and local development community can take profit and build their local business, because that's where it becomes important.
Okay, thanks a lot. So is there any other question?
Well, thank you very much, Bertrand, and we are already over time with.
Yeah, but it's okay. It was about this time. So now we can try a networking part. Normally during the meetup we have a real cocktail with beers and wine and fruit juice and things to eat. So I don't know if you have everything in your house and where you are.